My name is Laurie Balise. I have kind of a funny last name. It's not Balsey. It's not Bayless. It's not. It's been mispronounced and butchered many times in my life, but it is Balise. My pronouns are she, her. I am 53 years old. I was born in Seattle, Washington. I have lived here my entire life, sans being in Wenatchee for 2 years, and I lived in New Mexico for a summer semester at UNM, and I lived in Alaska in Juneau for tourist season. But otherwise, I am a native Seattle gal. I have a daughter who is 22. I have a daughter who is almost 18. I was communications and public relations major from the University of Washington, and I have been dancing for 50 years. I just realized last night on World Ballet Day, when I did my post, that this is my golden anniversary of ballet and celebrating dance in my life, because I'm 52 now. I am 53 on January 8th. So I am right around the corner, and I've been dancing since I was 3. So it's a long journey. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I have 2 older sisters. We're 2 years apart, each of us. And my mom decided to expose us to dance because she was a arts major. She went to college and she loved dance, but she never had formal training. So she exposed all of us to the arts because it was really big for her. She performed in Gilbert and Sullivan musical. She had a beautiful voice. I have no singing voice whatsoever. So it was very evident at a young age that dance was my thing. Even though I was the youngest, I was always, full of life, full of energy, liked to be out and, very expressive, very naturally expressive. And so she got us involved in tap classes with a neighbor just across the street, just as a beginning foray. And so that was my only time I ever took tap. And I was not very talented at it. The coordination, for some reason, my brain is not mechanical in that way. I'm not a mechanical person, but she continued to put us into dance classes. But ballet really was kind of my thing. Is very natural in it. I'm an athletic coordinated person, so I did a lot of sports growing up too. But I continued in dance through elementary school. And when it became really evident that it was really, something I really enjoyed doing, I kind of want to put all my eggs in one basket, then I was just doing dance. But then I started dancing with Lana McGinnis, was my first teacher, who is a big dance person, who was a dance person. She's passed away, sadly. She was my first dance teacher. I went to high school with her son. And then I started dancing with at Furdale Village with Dorothy and Nell Fisher, who were very big in the dance community years and years and years ago as well. And so I continued there, and I got my first experiences performing at what was then the Playhouse. I was in the Pied Pipers, one of the Pied Pipers' friends, with Jerry Tasson, who used to be a principal at PMB way back in the years. He was our guest artist. And then Dorothy and Nell Fisher sold their school and studio to John and Helen Wilkins, who started Olympic Ballet Theater in Edmonds. So I became an apprentice and a senior company member when I was about 11 and 12. And so I was a founding company member of Olympic Ballet Theater. And so I danced there through my middle school years, went to 4 Pacific Regional Dance Festivals, I want to say. I got a scholarship to choreography in Geneva, New York. And then performed in, I don't know how many consecutive years of Nutcrackers at Way James Theater before there was an Edmonds Center for the Arts. And then we would do our spring showcases. We did a lot of gala performances for people, for fundraisers in the community. My first job ever, paid job ever, was dancing at Frederick & Nelson, which used to be a very big department store. The Frederick & Nelson's had Santa Claus breakfast downtown, and I would go and dance there every Christmas season. So when I got into my 20s and I was in college, I found aerobics. I stopped dancing, doing, the level of dancing I was doing. I found aerobics and I loved aerobics in college. It kept me active. It gave me a chance to be sort of in my ballet dance body in terms of the way I moved. I found a woman when I was here in the local area, Pro Aerobics, who herself had similar background, and combined that, and she opened several aerobic studios called Pro Aerobics. And so then I got to be in a couple aerobics videos with her. And so that's what I did in my 20s. And then in my 30s, I was an intern at Pacific Northwest Ballet in their communications department. And I got to be involved with their audition tour. I did all the preparation for the audition tour. I got to actually do all the public relations and help with special events organization of their Cinderella Ball when they first premiered Cinderella Ballet. I then left graduated, I worked at a law firm. So again, I made a complete change to nothing in dance, nothing in arts for a couple of years, got married. And then I applied to work at Seattle Symphony in corporate development, which then actually forayed into, they had an opening as a publicist for the opening of Benaray Hall. I did all the tours. Made all the guest artists. I picked them up in their hotels. I take them to interviews. I got to see amazing, amazing performers. And then I decided I want to have kids. I was married to my first husband and I wanted to have kids, and working from 7 till 11 o'clock was not really that great. I switched to working at a PR firm and had my kids. And it was at that point that I decided I didn't want to be in public relations anymore. So I started teaching aerobics, and I moved up to the Everett area, in Mill Creek area, which is where I still live. And I was pregnant, my second child. I took my older daughter into dance classes and started having conversations, and they realized that I had danced and been a dancer, and they asked me if I'd start teaching. And so I started teaching dance 23 years ago. I taught at Reflection School of Dance for 10 years, and I was really enjoying the experience of being in a school and starting to teach, but having exposure to other dance styles that I didn't get to have as a kid. And looking back, I wish that I'd had those opportunities to be involved in contemporary lyrical, because that really would have been my niche as an athletic dancer. So I've been teaching it now. I left Reflections. I've taught elevated sports. I've taught trampoline classes using my dance background. I've taught bar classes at bar studios. I've taught yoga classes. I now teach yoga. I teach Pilates. I taught for 17 years at LA Fitness in my area, and I taught 17 formats of classes. I've taught ballet to hip hop dancers, Creative Minds. I've taught conditioning to they had an adult program there that I've come in and done master classes. I've done private lessons. I have taught ice skaters. I've been teaching at Vibe for 6 years now, is where I currently teach. I teach also at Columbia Athletic Club right now. I teach yoga and Pilates classes. I teach aqua fitness classes to all ages of people. I've taught mommy and me classes. Pretty much any class you can think of, I have taught or subbed at one point in my dance teaching career of 23 years. So that in a long version, that's kind of my dance story. I quit dance completely. And part of the challenge along with that was those days, especially, I came back from a summer camp, and because I like sports, I like doing athletics, I like doing other things. I canoed all the way around, or paddled all the way around island for the summer at a camp for 3 weeks. And I came back and my shoulders were bigger. Go figure. I had stronger deltoid muscles. My biceps were bigger. And the director of Olympic Ballet Theater, very traditionally, aligning toward traditional ballet bodies, said my shoulders were too big. And what it had done with my summer, why had I spent my summer canoeing and changing my body so it didn't look like a perfect ballet body in terms of I was too big, too broad shouldered. But it really was that time where we were in that generation, really feeling a lot of the pressure of, if you don't look the right way, if you don't have the right body, if you don't have the right feet, then you're done. Enjoy it while you're doing it, but what's your future in dance? And that was really hard. I know, and then struggle with body dysmorphia. I struggled with depression that turned into overeating to deal with trauma in my life that I was experiencing. So a lot of things that, young people I know now are the things that people deal with, my students deal with. I dealt with it. So luckily, I was able to get through that really challenging period of self-loathing in my life, feeling like I wasn't, my body wasn't good enough to be a dancer or whatnot. And I said, okay, well, then I'm going to go back to my sports. And so I rode on a crew team for 4 years and did that instead. And my shoulders were even bigger. And I loved it. And I'm so glad I did it, because it was a fantastic experience. And why we shouldn't do what our heart desires, and why we shouldn't listen to ourselves rather than listen to the voices around us, which are often draining and negative, is a question that I try to have my students know and understand, is that it's what makes you happy, not what makes your parent happy, not what makes your dance director happy. I'm going to cry when I say it, but you have to be your own individuated person and be yourself and be true to yourself. Because if you don't have yourself, you don't have anything. And I mean, that's a lesson to pass along in life. I pass it on to my students, pass it on to my kids, because I know that have that as my sanctuary, my self-love, then I would have nothing. And I don't know where I would be at this point, because I've been through enough challenges that would easily have done me in. So I learned to tune out the voices, as hard as it is, as a young person, because you're very susceptible to what others are saying and the impact of others around you. The challenges your generation have, which are the beauty of this generation, is communication and social media. And it's a wonderful thing because it really has created a lot of progression in the dance industry. I feel in a positive direction, especially what Dancewear Center is doing, which is so marvelous. But of course, it also can be a huge hindrance because it really can affect kids' mental health, and judging and comparing, which is so toxic. I tell my dancers, judging is the most toxic, comparing is the most toxic thing you can do. The most important thing is to walk into a room. Confidence is not having to compare yourself to anybody and just knowing that I'm me. I'm going to show up. I'm my own person that I'm competing with as myself. But that's a really, really hard thing in the dance world, especially in competitive dance world and ballet and so forth, is to not have that healthy mindset. And when you have people around you that are impacting it negatively, I have a story to tell of so many years of experience in dance in so many different avenues and directions, and that I'm an example of, that you can continue dance in your life in any way, shape, or form you want for a long time. And even if you stop and you pause, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's done forever. Or if I didn't get into that company, or I didn't, succeed in that audition, or in anything in life, whether it's relationships or dance or jobs, you're going to have a lot of chapters. I was really inspired because I know most of the generation, that even of your staff is your age or 30s, and I'm in my 50s, and there are us dinosaurs out there who are still dancing. And that I want people to see that. I want your generation to know that it's not a be all end all in one direction or other, and if you truly love dance, like I truly love dance, in my heart, it's in my soul, it's who I am. So I'm a woman who has gained a lot of strength and conviction in what I do and what I espouse to others, and the example that I set to my students, to those around me, to other moms, to other people my age, and inspiring people, connecting more with people like you and sharing my story and letting people hear and know, how dance has impacted my life. There's already been a lot of change. Like I was saying, it's so nice to see what, social media and technology and awareness, because of communication. I didn't have those things back then. We had no internet. We had none of those tools. So our education was so limited. We lived in smaller bubbles. We weren't aware of what other people were doing. So this mass communication through technology is fantastic, because there already has been changes, but they've come so late, only because technology has allowed us, like the changes in tights, the color of tights and shoes. I mean, it's like, it's just now becoming like this thing, because of Black Lives Matter and the things we've gone through during the pandemic that should have happened years ago. So all those same things, again, everybody is a dancing body, every body, every, your feet, whatever, you make it the experience your own. You find a place where you feel welcome and comfortable, and you don't give up dance because you don't fit that box. You go to another place where you feel included. I would like to see that that argument about, dance isn't a sport. I'm so glad that now people recognize that dance is an athletic endeavor and an art at the same time. And me being somebody who, again, has combined my dance and my fitness, I've done 4 Tough Mudders. So I'm kind of like the tough ballerina, like kind of that juxtaposition, that dichotomy, which is kind of cool. But the athleticism and the things I've done, my strength training, my doing the work that I do in the gym as a teacher in those classes and formats with small weights and weight bearing exercises and core strength, has really kept my body as strong as it is for almost 53 to do what I do. So another thing I want to see in dance that I try to do is 2 things: is more focus on strength conditioning and training and the importance of that, and that it will give you longevity in your body and make you a stronger dancer. And so that, along with the emphasis in mental health, is so important. I teach, my director has at my school has realized, thankfully, because of who I am and what I offer. And again, and I say marketing myself, but it's not really like I'm marketing myself. It's just I'm being me. I'm being who I am, and who I am has these abilities to connect with people and so forth. So I teach a mindfulness and meditation class at my school. And so right now I'm teaching mindfulness and meditation, I'm teaching Pilates, and I'm teaching ballet. So to me, those three things, and I talk about it as sort of a pyramid, and I love this. I look at pyramid as a powerful geometry that energizes its surroundings with positive energies. So the power of the geometric force, the energies of thinking in terms of that, in terms of our body, mind, and our spirit are always in connection, and that we always need strength, control, and range of motion. And those are a triad of things. So that I use that sort of geometry in everything that I teach. So when I teach something, I'm always keeping those three things in mind in everything that I teach. So seeing more emphasis on dance companies and schools in general, including mental health, including stretching, so including lifetime focus on these aspects of that I've gleaned from my experience in dance and yoga and everything, that are really, like, to me, some of the most important things that any human being can be doing is focusing on their mental health and focusing on the stretching and movement of their body. It doesn't have to be in technique classes. It's just movement, stretching, and offering that more in schools. I think every dance company and school should have a mental health area, their school, because it is so important, and we're better artists when we're in touch with our self. We're more expressive. I mean, I have been able to address that on so many levels with my dancers. I have seen them grow so in such huge ways because they're more in touch with who they are. They're more expressive. They maybe don't have that opportunity. Maybe they have a family dynamic that isn't as expressive at home, and they don't know how to identify their emotions. They don't have a safe place to talk, to express the feelings that they're having about, a parent or a friend in the school, or anything and everything. So I provide that safe place, and it has been the most wonderful thing for our school. I've seen the connectivity amongst the team, the girls. There's less, inner competition. They all feel like a family. They feel, loved and supported and seen and heard and understood. And if we as human beings can be that way in general in life, I mean, we're a better society. Our humanity is better. So to me, that is huge in dance, what I'd like to see change. And then also, like, for older people, my mother died of dementia. And, there's been all kinds of studies, of course, about the power of music and movement to help prevent dementia and the connection to our body, mind, and spirit connection. And I love that I've seen it, although it's not, common, is, dance classes for older people to prevent dementia. And it can be class sitting in a chair, like I've seen it. It can be like chair yoga. It can be, putting on classical music, putting on Swan Lake, and having people do port de bras, and they come alive in their inner child and their inner spirit, and something gets renewed in their brain chemistry in that moment, because their movement and dance and music, the power of that in our brain chemistry is so important, and keeping people's emotional health and happiness. People are happy when they listen to music, and moving their bodies, the energy flowing through our bodies is so important to not be stagnant for our mental health and for illness and everything in general. So that's another area that, I think about. Perhaps maybe that's something I might like to do, as I graduate in my dance career of teaching. So I've been teaching so long that maybe making that transition myself into doing that as a teacher, working with older populations of people would be kind of cool, I think, a way to honor my mom who brought me into dance and into the arts.